Hi YouTube, Darth here. A few weeks ago I talked about the benefits of smoke versus active protection on your tank, and today I want to talk about my tank loadout in Battlefield 4. Specifically, I'll dive into why I use Canister Shell now instead of the machine guns, but let's look at some loadouts first. The most typical tank loadout I see in Battlefield 4 usually looks something like this: AP Shell, light machine gun, active protection, reactive armor, and an optic of choice. There's nothing wrong with this setup, it's pretty well suited to most circumstances. Depending on the situation, my personal loadout looks like this. I run with HE Shell, Canister Shell, Smokescreen, Autoloader, and Zoom Optics. If it's an enormous map with lots of air power, I switch out the HE Shell for Sabot Shell and the Smokescreen for active protection. Let me talk about some of the trade-offs and advantages of the individual choices that I've made and what that means for any tank's loadout. On most maps I typically run with HE Shell as opposed to AP Shell or Sabot Shell. Why is this? Because the HE Shell does more damage per shot than the other two, even if its sustained damage per second is lower. On normal mode, the HE Shell will kill a tank in 2 to 4 hits and will kill an LAV just as quickly. This is at least one shell better than the AP Shell in both circumstances, and it's clearly superior versus the LAV. It's also superior for pillaring, shooting and then ducking behind cover on city maps. I go over this pillaring maneuver and many other key tank strategies in my Armored Warfare video, which I'll link below. Again, if I'm in the great outdoors, I'll typically switch to the Sabot round for ease of aiming and better sustained damage during long-range encounters where I typically can't pillar. For my countermeasure choice, I use Smokescreen, and I'll refer you to my video all about Smokescreen as I cover it in much greater detail there. Short version is this: if you're on a map without air or threat of lock-on weapons, Smokescreen is a great tool to be a ninja tank and obscure yourself from enemies while reducing damage. Now let's get to the meat of what I wanted to talk about: Canister Shell. There's a lot of folks who prefer one machine gun or the other, and they're definitely useful tools if you are simultaneously engaging both infantry and armor with no secondary gunner. However, this combined situation isn't even half of the encounters you'll deal with in Battlefield 4. Possibly the most important reason why I run Canister Shell is because of its instantaneous killing power. This is particularly important for hitting soldiers that might have otherwise ducked out of the way of your fire. Think about how many times you just wanted to kill that engineer when he peeks around a corner trying to shoot a rocket at you. In his mind, most tanks run machine guns, which he can take a round or two from at full health and still live. Now the second he peeks, he dies. The trade-off for this instantaneous killing power is that at close range it can be very difficult to hit a quickly maneuvering infantry target. But if you leave your exits open to you, it's generally not a problem to back up and put them back in that ideal range of beyond 15 meters. Additionally, this close range territory should ideally be covered by your secondary gunner. Now, I run Autoloader and Canister Shell in tandem because the reload of the Canister Shell is quite long. By default, Canister Shell reloads in 3 seconds. This might seem short, but this is an eternity when a C4 kamikaze is closing in on you. Now, Autoloader decreases the reload time of all shells by 20%. This means that with the Autoloader, you can fire a Canister Shell every 2.4 seconds. Additionally, this is a major boost to your main gun as it can reduce your main charge's time to kill armor by 3 seconds, getting an extra shell out when it matters in tank versus tank battles. Ultimately, I feel this combination that I use is probably the strongest for players that are aware of where their enemies are. If you are surprised by engineers or armor, you could find yourself quickly disabled by a good shot because of no reactive armor. However, I find that the firepower provided by the Autoloader Canister HE Shell combination is vastly superior and comes in exceptionally handy when you get in a great position against your enemy. So there are trade-offs that you have to be aware of with any loadout, but that's pretty much the meat of the loadout I've been running on my tanks lately. If you'd like some more of my armor tips, be sure to check out the links in the description below. If you found this video helpful, be sure to leave a like before you go. If you're new around here, check out my channel and please consider subscribing. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, YouTube.